We are at week 3 of college football, and we are excited to come to you with Ready Bet Action to bring you some picks for week 3. Going to be honest, last week wasn't our strongest showing we've ever had. Sometimes you just got to throw the game film away, though, and you burn the game film and you move on, and you keep going. Early season games are hard to pick. I think we got some good ones this week, though. And, after this week, we will be a quarter of the way through the season. It's kind of depressing, actually, already.
Don't say that.
25% of the way through.
The college football playoff is going to go so long that we'll have a little bit more.
It's not really a quarter of the way. It's a quarter of the way for teams like mine, Colorado, who will not be going to bowl games and college football playoffs. All right. Let's jump right in. We're gonna start. We have a lot of picks, not as many as last week. We're going for quality over quantity this week. We're gonna have a full clean slate here. Stefan and Mike, you both like this Arizona Kansas State game on Friday night. So, Steph, why don't you start with that?
Super excited for this game. Dan tore apart Kansas State's defense. You're probably like, wait, who is that? That's the freshman quarterback for Tulane, who just kept getting deep over top of this K-State defense. You might also remember the name Ted McMillan from week 1 when he had 300 receiving yards. He plays for Arizona. So we have this high-flying Arizona offense against a suspect Kansas State secondary. Then on the other side of the ball, Kansas State running the ball is where they're like very strong, and Arizona's front seven can be a bit of a liability. So I think this is a fascinating matchup because the offensive strengths meet up nicely against these defensive weaknesses. So I'm on the over all day over here. I think I have it at 59.5 at -110 is where I like it because I think this game really does shoot out. I don't have a play on the side because I could really see either outcome. I lean Kansas State to win and cover, but that touchdown just feels a bit too high. What I do expect to see in this game is a lot of points. I think Avery Johnson starts going with his legs a little bit more for K-State, which is going to be necessary. I think he's only had like 6 designed runs so far, not near enough. And I know they haven't been playing the toughest of teams, so I expect they've been saving some of that for this matchup. I think you see Avery go off. My biggest disappointment is that this game is on Friday, not Saturday, so it's not part of like the DFS main slate. But you better believe I'm going to be doing some Friday night DFS just so I can get Avery in my lineup and Ted McMillan too. So I think this game is going to be super, super exciting, very entertaining. Cancel your plans on Friday and watch this.
Yeah, man, I like this a lot. Against New Mexico in week 1, Arizona got torn up by Dampier on the ground. And Avery Johnson's going to do the same thing again this week. Like, I'm just not convinced they can stop a quarterback that can run the ball. You mentioned their secondary last week just looked like they were in shambles. Tulane actually had almost 100 yards more of team offense than Kansas State did. So I expect this to be a high scoring game. I wouldn't be surprised if this hit 65.
Oh yeah, this one could have totals into the 70s. Would be super exciting and fun to watch. So little Big 12 shootout with no defense, pretty classic. Mike, why don't you take us through your first pick? That's your pick.
Yeah, I'm taking LSU -6.5. I ate my words week 1 with LSU against USC. Miller Moss showed up, showed out. The secondary couldn't do anything about it. And there's a lot of hype around the South Carolina team this week. They've got game day going to South Carolina. It's going to be at the Cockpit. And I'm just not bought into this SC team yet. Kentucky played arguably the worst game of football we have ever seen last week. Brock Vandagriff. Yeah, Vandagriff had a total of 40 yards passing or something like that.
The New York Giants would beg to differ, but I know what you're saying.
I mean, and they had like 11 team penalties with 2 turnovers. I mean, it was just bad. And then South Carolina, offensively, they had a negative success rate against Old Dominion. And so I'm just not bought into the South Carolina team like a lot of people are. Nussmeier, on the flip side, I think is the best player on LSU. And with them now losing Emory Johnson for the year, they're going to have to lean on him more. We saw that a little bit last week. They threw the ball. I think it was something like 39 passes to 19 carries or something around in that area. So when you're putting the ball in your best player's hands against a very not great secondary, it's going to be hard to not score a lot of points. And South Carolina's offense is just not built for a shootout, in my opinion.
I like this one too. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Oh no, I lost a lot of money on that Kentucky, thinking Kentucky was better than they were against South Carolina last week. But I do blame Kentucky more for that than I do give South Carolina credit.
Yeah, I mean, I think
this is.
Go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
Oh, this is an exciting game because it's like what we're talking about with Kansas State and Arizona. Here we've got like South Carolina's defensive line is their strength. LSU's strength is their offensive line. But here we have strength versus strength, which is going to be very interesting to see. Excited. LSU's secondary is kind of tough, but Sellers for South Carolina hasn't proven that he can throw the ball. Like he's a sub 50% completion percentage. So on that side of the ball, it's weakness versus weakness. So we got strength, weakness versus weakness. I'm excited to see again what's going to play out on this one. I think we're going to learn a lot about both these teams. I lean LSU along with you though, Mike. I like it.
Awesome. I'm going to move us over to the Big 12 Mountain West matchup. We have BYU against Wyoming. I'm taking BYU in the first half -6.5, like going into halftime. Wyoming appears to be, how do you say, bad? Really bad. They've lost to Arizona State and Idaho. They lost to the Idaho Vandals at home. So BYU, on the other hand, had an impressive, I think more than impressive win against SMU. I think we all thought SMU was going to come out firing. I did anyways. BYU looks a lot better than I thought they would be. So this is the best team out of the first three teams that Wyoming has played. And I think I just like that first half spread of -6.5. BYU to be leading by at least a touchdown at halftime. Obviously, the spread on this is higher than that for the full game. I didn't really like the point totals, but BYU, after an impressive win coming into Wyoming, being the best team that Wyoming has played. So that's what I like for that. We can move back, however, to the SEC. Y'all both like some action on this Ole Miss game.
Yeah, this is kind of a I'm taking it until they prove me wrong kind of standpoint. I don't have a ton to say here with stats and all that fun stuff, other than the fact that Ole Miss is averaging over 700 yards of offense per game, and then they're rolling into a Wake team that I don't think is very good, man. They took Virginia to the wire there, 31-30. Virginia is not amazing and put up a lot of yards, and Ole Miss is just that much better. So I am teasing this down to -20.5 just to get under that 21 point because I want to play it safe. But I don't think they're going to have any issues covering whatsoever.
Yeah, and in fact, Mike, I'm going to bet they don't need those extra points, which is why I'm just taking Ole Miss -22.5. I think you're spot on. I don't think Wake Forest is going to be able to hang with them at all. Ole Miss has no interest in slowing down. They want to score points. They want their offense to be humming. They know that they have their sights set on big things this year. I think they don't have to try too hard to get this number. I think they can pretty much choose the score they want and go for it. And I think that's going to be, north of 40 plus points. And I don't see Wake scoring all that much. This passing offense, Jackson Dart, I mean, their tight end Precorn is playing incredibly. He can block as well. You've got Juice Wells healthy enough. Transfer came in. We got Watkins. And I mean, this team is just stupid good right now. And they're next level from Wake Forest. And when you see these games, like this isn't the NFL where like it's going to be tight. Like college teams run up the scores for a while. And I think this one gets north of 21 before the third quarter ends. So even when it's garbage time, I don't even think we have to worry about a backdoor cover.
That's always a nice feeling. Stefan, why don't you keep us with the ACC versus the SEC matchup with Boston College at Missouri?
Yeah, so Boston College, Missouri is kind of an interesting one. We've talked a little bit about Thomas Castellanos from a DFS perspective for BC. He's super fun. But but I just don't think Boston College matches up with Missouri very well. Luther Burden is the best wide receiver in the country. I know Ted McMillan would like to have a word, but Luther Burden is him. And Brady Cook can get him the ball well enough that this is going to be just fine. So I think the line is at 16.5 right now. And I just don't think that's enough. I think this is a pretty easy 17 to 21 point win. So excited to back the Missouri Tigers. I'm not like, I know some people have Missouri like penciled into the playoff, have them like really high up there. I'm not quite there with Missouri, but I do think against like lesser quality opponents, they can step on the gas and get out to really comfortable leads.
Yeah, game is in Columbia as well. Mike, why don't you keep us in the SEC? I think with your last pick, you have a parlay for us.
I do have a parlay. I've teased both of these pretty heavily, but I'm taking Georgia minus 13.5 plus Purdue plus 18. You can get this together at minus 132 on DraftKings. Georgia, man, they look like the number one team in the country. They're rolling. ETN came back last week from his suspension. Defensively, they've allowed a total of 9 points in their last 3 games combined. And that wasn't against exactly throwaway opponents either. It was last week, but then they had, Clemson and Florida State, the 2 games prior to that. And we already talked about how bad Kentucky was in this matchup. And so, you can make an argument that Georgia probably knows Brock Vandagriff better than Kentucky knows him as it is so far.
Probably true,
given how long he was at Georgia for those 3 years. So I teased it down by roughly 7 here just to play it safe. Every now and then Kentucky will pull something out with Georgia at home. And I do think they have a little bit of a bounce back game, as poor as they were last year, but I don't think it's enough to cover here. And then with the other side of this, Notre Dame in general, they've just been unimpressive. We all know they got stunned by Northern Illinois last week. Riley Leonard has not looked fantastic. He's just over 50% completion rate with 2 interceptions.
And injured now too. Like he's got that shoulder injury.
Exactly. And then even in their 10-point win against A&M, man, A&M only had 246 yards of total offense. So it's not like Notre Dame had to do a ton here to really pull off the win offensively. We don't have a ton of data on Purdue yet this year. They had the week 1 game against Indiana State and then went straight into a bye. However, last year they covered this number in every game except for against Michigan and Ohio State. And historically in this matchup, they've kept it close. You'd have to go all the way back 19 matches to 1996 to get to a point where Purdue has not covered this number. So it is a rivalry game, in-state rivalries or rivalry in Indiana. So I like it to stay close. I do like Notre Dame to win, but I just don't think Purdue is going to have any issues covering 18 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love the interstate rivalry game. I'm sure that Purdue team has a chip on their shoulders. And Ryan Walters, CU Buff head coach. Let's go Purdue to cover. He was one of my favorite coaches at Illinois, and now he's at Purdue, and I don't think he's going to be able to make a lot of traction. Anyways, I digress. My last pick, I only have 2 picks today. I don't really love the whole slate, but honestly, I'm going to be watching anyways. Is it going to stop me from watching college football all day? Absolutely not. However, I'm going back to the well. I fell on my face last week with a MAC team versus a big team. I had an App State versus Clemson pick. I don't think this pick falls quite into the same category, but I am going with a MAC team, Toledo, to go over 23.5 points at Mississippi State. So not exactly playing Clemson over here. Mississippi State's a pretty bad team. Toledo has also scored so far this year. They've scored 49 and 38 points in their 2 respective games. And Mississippi State just gave up 23 points to Arizona State, who I've already mentioned multiple times is not a good team. So give me Toledo over 23.5 points at Mississippi State. Honestly, I'm not going to pick it, but I'm not shocked if Toledo comes away with a win here. I don't think it's going to happen. I definitely wouldn't put money on that, but if we're all watching football on Saturday and it's wow, Toledo's in the lead versus Mississippi State for a little bit, at least, I wouldn't be super shocked about it. that team can just put up points. Toledo's always like that, like top passing team in the country kind of stats and those kind of things. So it would not surprise me. But yeah, Stefan, you have a pick for Indiana UCLA game.
Yeah, so this is a fun. This is our first time meeting up as a Big Ten teams. UCLA, I think this is their first home Big Ten match. I think this is just their second game of the season after squeaking past Hawaii in week 1. This is a 3 points here and pretty close. I think Indiana has been a super exciting team this year. We've talked about how Kirk Cignetti, the coach from James Madison, who did so well last year, over their first year now. We've got Foster, first-year coach in UCLA. So I don't know which team has, like neither coach has a proven track record at their schools. However, Cignetti has brought this really fun offense to Indiana, and they're humming. Like they put up 70 one week, or I don't know, but they're scoring a lot of points. I think Curtis Rourke, coming over from Ohio, has been really good at being able to get the football to his playmakers. We talked about Indiana. I can't remember if it was here at Ready Bet or on Total College Football, but their style of play is going to be very fun this year. They may not win games. I think they might. They could really surprise people, but they're going to play fun offense. And I don't think UCLA is going to be able to slow them down enough. So give me Indiana -3 at UCLA. I think they come out and get a big statement win here. I just think it's going to be a tough year for UCLA. Ethan Garbers is an okay quarterback, but they have so much work to do to rebuild that program if they even want to. We've talked about this before with UCLA. So interesting to see what will take place, but give me Indiana in this new Big Ten matchup.
Well, the news broke today that we have 4 Mountain West teams that are likely joining the Pac-12. In my opinion, UCLA should just hop on that train and get back to the Pac-12. They would be immediately a top team in that conference with Oregon State, Washington State, the 4 Mountain West schools. UCLA would immediately be a big dog. I honestly think they should do it. Honestly, man, maybe I'm being a skeptical Colorado fan. I wouldn't have hated Colorado being the top dog in essentially just like the weak version of the Big 12, So I think UCLA should do the same thing. They won't, but whatever. All right, let's move on. We're gonna wrap this thing up. This is the part of the show where we summarize and give you a quick rundown of all of our picks. Mike, why don't you kick us off, and I will follow, and Stefan can finish us off with all of our picks.
Yeah, so give me LSU -6.5 at South Carolina. A parlay of Georgia -13.5 plus Purdue +18 points. You can get these at -132, and Ole Miss -20.5 at Wake Forest.
Awesome. I'm going to take BYU -6.5 just in the first half at Wyoming, and Toledo over 23.5 points at Mississippi State.
Perfect. I'm also on that Arizona Kansas State 59.5. We think there's going to be a lot of points in that game. Mike and I are both on that one. I'm going to take Mizzou -16.5 hosting Boston College. I'm going to take Ole Miss -22.5 at Wake Forest, and finally Indiana -3 at UCLA.
Rad. We will see y'all later. That's college football week 3. And we'll have some NFL picks for you coming soon.